various different methods who all have their pros and cons. One of these methods is the word-for-word translation, but before I go further into it, I might have to clear up a certain misconception that lives under monolinguists. People who speak more than one language will know that translating a certain sentence to another language is not just translating the individual words. Every language has its own way to express a certain thing. For example, in Dutch we can say, ik heb zin in snoep. It is impossible to translate this sentence literally into English because there is no word for zin in, but we can translate this sentence in the way that it expresses the same meaning. Plus, keep in mind that Dutch and English are very closely related. Imagine how difficult word-for-word translations are with unrelated languages like Arabic or Japanese. So I think it's quite clear that word-for-word translations don't always work so well. That is why a translator can also use a different method, free translation. This method assumes that translation always goes hand in hand with a certain laws of quality. For example, in a book there can be a certain play on words. The free translation would create a new play on words, while the word-for-word method would create an unfunny and nonsense sentence in the new language. But the free translation method also has its problems because it has the risk to change the intended message of the author. Now I want to apply our newly gained knowledge to the Bible, the most translated book ever. Even the name Bible already is a somewhat misleading term because it suggests that it's one solid book, the Bible. But actually the Bible is derived from the Greek word ta biblia, meaning the books. So it's more like a collection of books rather than one solid book. But I guess most of you already knew that. But still, it's a good example of how translation can alter the original meaning. Let's say you are reading the first book of the Bible, Genesis, about the creation of heaven and earth. Of course, you know that you are reading an English translation of an older text. The Old Testament was mostly written in Hebrew, some parts in Aramaic, and also some texts in Greek. So if you really wanted to understand the Bible, you should learn Hebrew to get the original text. But of course, that is an outrageous task to do. So you are stuck with the translation. That is, of course, not the end of the world. But it is important to keep in mind that you are reading an English translation from a Latin translation, from a Greek translation that itself goes back to an Hebrew text. That is a 4th-degree translation, so no doubt that many of the original message and beauty of the text has been lost. I will give you an example of how a simple translation mistake can change the course of the story very drastically. So let's take this Hebrew sentence from the original texts of Isaiah 9.7. Dabar shalach Adonai beYaakov, or something like that. This first word is ambiguous. Mind you, Hebrew is written from right to left. So this first word is ambiguous because it can be read in 2 different ways. Hebrew is a consonant language, which means that in script it does not write vowels, only consonants. So transcribed to the Latin script, there stands something like DBR. And these letters can mean 2 words, either deber, which means death, or dabar, which means word. Most of the time, the context is clear enough to make out which word it is, but here it is not. The first Greek translators of the Bible translated the sentence as the Lord sent death to Jacob, while many scholars now think it should be translated as the Lord sent word to Jacob. You see, entirely different. And in the whole story, in the first Greek translation, God seemed angry with Jacob and sought to punish him, while in the original Hebrew text, God just wanted to help Jacob. You see how such a small translation error can change the course of a whole story. So does this mean that all translations are bad and should be avoided? Of course not. Translation enables us to transfer knowledge to other cultures. Without translation, the Bible would have never become so influential and widespread. But it is important that you realize that you are reading a translation and thus should not make hasty opinions without knowing the background or the original texts. But I guess that applies to every situation in life. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.